All right, what's up, my friends? Joel here, and we are just going to wait for a few people to log on, start watching, and I guess I better put my headphones on here. It's been a while since I've done a live video, but we're going to go ahead and get rolling in just a minute. Okay, everything looks set. Everything looks like it's in good order. I got my headphones on. Let's see, what else did I used to do when I used to do live videos? We've got the banners are set. The Chiron is set. And okay. So if you can see me, if you can hear me, let me know. I'm going to be going live today. So we're kind of shooting from the hip, jumping out of the airplane with no parachute. If you can see me, if you can hear me, I see a couple people are watching. But just drop a comment. Let me know that you can see, that you can hear, and we've got a lot to talk about today. This is a live recording of the Worldview Legacy podcast. It's actually the first time that we've done it since rebranding as the Worldview Legacy podcast. Quick note, if you're watching on Facebook, you're going to need to go to streamyard.com/Facebook and enter in your permissions there so I can see who you are. I'm going to put that up on the screen. streamyard.com/Facebook. All right, so a lot of really exciting things to talk about today. And not exciting for me. I already know about all these things. But I think that you guys are going to be excited about them, if I dare say so. I think that you guys will be excited, Think Squad. I think this is going to be something that is encouraging to you. I think that it's going to be inspiring. I think you're gonna appreciate what we're doing, Lord willing, and how the Lord's using you and me and us. So I'm very pumped about this. But you know what? I hate when podcasters say, "I'm super excited about today's episode. I'm super excited." Like, who cares? Who cares that you're super excited? Am I going to be excited? Is this something that's going to benefit me? That's what I'm wondering about as I'm listening to a podcast. So I'm sure you're probably listening to the same thing, even though you're a lot nicer than me and you didn't say that out loud. Okay, good. Looks like some people can see and hear. We got people watching on Facebook, on Instagram. Good. Well, thank you guys. Thanks for watching. Thanks for entering your permissions on StreamYard. If you haven't done so yet, let me go ahead and take this off, the banner off there, and we're going to go ahead and get started. And I guess we have everything in order. Okay, so big episode today, but when I put this on the actual podcast, which I am going to do, the recording of the podcast is going to start right now. Why would we leave a huge organization with 19,000 missionaries in 191 countries in order to strike out on our own? Before I can tell you that, I need to tell you something else. This is not a podcast. I mean, it is, but it's not just a podcast. What you are listening to right at this very moment is a tool that I want to put into your hand to help you become the worldview leader that your wife, your kids, your church, and your local area need you to be. Actually, this podcast is more like a tool belt. Every episode, I ask a question that I hope will help you better articulate your Christian faith with confidence and become better able to answer the questions that the world is going to ask you about it. I want you to have what you need arranged in a convenient way, ready and accessible when you need it, like having all your tools in a tool belt. And this podcast, Worldview Legacy, is part of that effort. It's part of the work that we've been doing that we call the Think Institute. And there is a lot more behind the scenes, or you really might say behind the screens, than what you are listening to on a weekly basis. So what is the Think Institute? How does it all fit together? And how can you get the most out of what we're doing? Today, I'm going to tell you about our ministry, the Think Institute. And I'm going to tell you how we got here, where we are now, and where we're going, and why we are leaving Cru, formerly Campus Crusade for Christ, that huge organization that I mentioned earlier, and striking out on our own. And I'll even tell you about how you can help us on this journey and make sure that we are headed in the right direction. Now, if you have any comments or questions as we go, I'm going to be taking some comments from the Think Squad group. Some people posted comments there and voted on some comments. So I'm going to be answering those questions. But if you have comments and you're watching live, I want to be able to answer those. So we've already got some comments coming in. It is my goal to answer them as we go. And by the way, if you are watching online, let me just give you this web address here. Let's see, it's StreamYard.com/LinkedIn, I think should be the address. Please go to that and let me make sure that works. Go to that and enter in your permissions so that you can comment on this video and I can see who you are, because I'd love to be able to do that. All right, if you have a question as we're going, please drop it in the comments and just start it with the word question. And I really want to get to all your guys' questions as we go. Okay, it's not going to be a long episode today. I'm thinking 30 minutes. I always try to keep these under 30 minutes when it's just me talking. When we've got a guest on, we make it 60 minutes, but when it's just me, we try to keep it short. All right, so here we go.
This is Worldview Legacy, the podcast from the Think Institute that helps Christian men become the worldview leaders their families and churches need.
Well, my name is Joel Sedekase, and I am a Bible teacher and a former pastor who used to defend the Christian worldview the completely wrong way. Then, God changed my attitude and my approach, and now I help Christians talk about their faith with confidence and become better able to answer questions about it, whether those questions are coming from the world or from your kids or from yourself. Today, I'm going to tell you why we are leaving Crew and starting our own 501c3 nonprofit ministry. Man, does it feel good to say that. It feels so good to say. I'm going to say that again. Today, I'm going to tell you why we are leaving Crew and starting our own 501c3 nonprofit ministry. Whew, I could say that a few more times, but I'm not going to. You can replay it if you want to hear it. Now, you are seeking to build a legacy for your family in the Christian worldview. I'm here to help. And the ship that we're all riding on together is called the Think Institute. I want to help you. I want to tell you about the ins and outs of the Institute so that you know what the heck is going on over here and how you can get the most out of all this. If you've been wondering what the Think Institute is, or what Worldview Legacy is, or you've seen our stuff on Facebook or Instagram, or maybe you're part of the Think Squad group and you would like to know a little bit more about our ministry and whether it's actually worth your attention, you are going to get those questions answered today. So if you've ever taken on a massive new project or started a company or a school or a ministry, or if you've gotten married and started a family, you're going to relate to a lot of what I have to say today. And if you're intrigued by the idea of building Christian culture and building institutions, creating movements to build up the church and win the world for Jesus Christ, you will not want to miss this. We are starting a new nonprofit. This episode is for you. Today, I'm going to answer the following questions. What is the purpose of the Think Institute? Why are we starting a nonprofit? Why are we leaving Crew? What exactly is our strategy? Who's on our team? What exactly will we be doing and how can you benefit? Whom are we trying to help? And how can you help us? Now, if you like what you hear and you want to become better able to articulate and defend your Christian perspective, then you will want to know about our free community. Many of you already do. There are over 600 members there, all who are on this same journey that you're on. Members of this community share ideas and wisdom and strategies, and they get solid biblical answers to the questions the world is asking. And we also have a lot of fun. It's where you can get a better understanding of the tools of knowledge. And the Think Squad, which is the name of our community, is extremely based by God's grace. I'll tell you more about the group and how to join at the end of the show. All right, so what I want to do is I want to present to you our ministry. Now, if you're watching live, I'm going to show you some pictures right on your screen. I'm going to share my screen with you. If you're listening later on the podcast, thank you for listening. You're going to miss out on the visuals, but I'll do my best to articulate what we're all looking at here. And again, if you have a comment or question as we go, please feel free to drop that in the comments. Start it with the word question so I see it. We've had a lot of people commenting, and it's across all different platforms. So you might not see other people's comments, but I can see them, and I want to make sure I get to your comments as we go. Okay, so we're talking about the Think Institute, and here is what you need to know. We're going to start with, what is the purpose of the Think Institute? Now, every ministry like this has a problem that we need to solve. So what is the problem that we're trying to solve? What keeps us up at night? I'll tell you what it is. It's the American church. Right now in the United States of America, our situation is desperate. 6% of our fellow Americans have a biblical worldview. 200 million are unchurched. 2.7 million Americans leave the church annually. And right now, in the U.S., there are 10 states where 96% of the population are unreached and unchurched. All this makes the United States of America the fourth largest unchurched nation in the world. Now, the Bible is the most important book to us. It's the basis for our whole worldview. But all around us, our neighbors do not believe the Bible. They don't know what it says. And that means they don't know the core message of the Bible, the gospel of Jesus Christ. So our purpose as the Think Institute is to address this problem. Now, despite all of this situation, despite everything that's going on, God is still working. And I want to share with you a story of a couple of guys who I know, they're friends of mine, and I want to share it as an example of the way the Lord is still working in spite of the declining state of the church. In 2019, when we launched the Think Institute, we started something called the Hammer and Anvil Society. It was a discipleship gathering of men. We started out with maybe 7 guys, and it was this 11-month program where we met up once a month with some homework assignments in between, and we talked about the Christian worldview and evangelism and apologetics and how to build Christian culture. And one of the guys that went through that program was my friend Mark. Mark came through the program, and he just, I got to tell you, he was just awesome at it. I mean, all the guys were great. All the guys were awesome. We had a really fun time. But Mark and I talked afterwards about wanting to take his experience further. So he and I actually co-led a virtual remote Bible study using something called the Think Method, which is a method of Bible study that I've started, that I've written up. And so what happened was I worked with Mark and sort of trained him in that method. We co-led the Bible study. And then Mark went and led his own one-on-one Bible study with this guy, Ryan. Well, who's Ryan? Ryan is a friend of mine who we'd been in a Bible study about a year prior to this. And Ryan and I got to have a lot of conversations about the gospel and about Jesus Christ. And I came to find out after that Bible study, and after we'd had all those conversations and we hadn't talked in a while, I'd come to find out that Ryan had received the Lord Jesus Christ as his Lord and Savior and become a Christian. And so after celebrating and just rejoicing over that, Mark and Ryan ended up doing a Bible study together where Mark led it using the Think method that I had developed. So there's just all these interconnected friendships and connections that the Lord used. And this is a very small microcosmic view, but God is still growing his church. And by his grace, by his total unmerited grace, he is using the Think Institute and the work that we're doing to use it. He's using that to do it. So why do we exist? What is the big overarching purpose statement for the Think Institute? We exist to equip believers to explain, share, and defend the Christian message. That's why we're here. So that's what we're all about. Now, what does our vision look like? What does our ideal future look like? Well, we imagine thousands of churches that are filled with families led by parents who are taking ownership of passing on the Christian faith to the younger generation and seeing Jesus Christ change lives as they share their faith. We're big believers in moms and dads taking ownership of the spiritual development, discipleship, and education of their kids. And so we envision thousands of churches being revitalized through initiatives like this, through families. So that's what we're all about. Now, how do you reach families and how do you best position churches to be filled with the kinds of families that are reaching the younger generation and passing on the faith generationally? The way that I have found and the way that we are best suited to help accomplish that, obviously it has to be the Lord's work. It has to be the Holy Spirit. But the best way that I have found is to reach men, is to reach dads. Why reach dads? Because the research shows that if a father attends church while his children are growing up, those kids are between 66 and 75% likely that they will grow up to attend church themselves. Now, if the dad does not attend church, that number for the kids when they grow up drops down to 25 to 33%. It doesn't drop down to zero. Actually, if the mom and dad both don't go to church, the number drops down pretty much to zero. But the dad is the linchpin in the spiritual growth, in the spiritual practices of the younger generation. If you reach the dad, you have reached the spiritual leader of the family. I know that's not PC to say nowadays. It's what the Bible teaches. And if you reach fathers, you are more likely to reach families. And so that's what we aim to do, is reach dads. That is a big part of what we do. It's not exclusively what we do, not at all, but it's the center of the bullseye for us at the Think Institute. Now, why are we starting a nonprofit? How did we get to this point? And by the way, I see your comments and questions coming in. I will answer them at the end, so stay tuned. I was a pastor in the city of Chicago at a church called Park Community Church. It's a large, multi-site church in the city, and I was at the Forest Glen location. I was serving as the interim lead pastor, and in 2018, that role came to an end. Now, while I was a pastor, I saw the need for a teaching ministry, a teaching institute or academy that would equip everyday believers who aren't going to go to seminary in how to articulate and share and defend their faith. Well, between working 60 hours a week on pastoral ministry and having 4 kids at home, it just was not feasible at that time to start the ministry in the local church at that time. So when my pastoral position came to an end, Elisa and I joined up with Cru, formerly Campus Crusade for Christ. Cru at that time formed the perfect opportunity for us. We joined the division of Cru called Church Movements. Everybody knows about the campus ministry. And the campus ministry serves local churches. The campus ministry serves college students. Church Movements serves churches, local churches. And as a former pastor who loves the church, who believes that the church is God's plan A and there is no plan B, I wanted to join up with Church Movements. Now, at the time, Church Movements was 2 years old. They had about 30-something people on staff. It was a small division within Cru. There was a lot of flexibility, a lot of dynamism, and they gave us a big, wide-open sandbox in order to play and in order to build in. We knew the need was serious, and so we got to work right away. We launched the Think Institute. We raised our initial funds right away, which was great, by God's grace, total miracle. I'll tell you about that sometime if you want to know. But when we started the Think Institute, we did it under the umbrella of Church Movements, and our goal was always to come alongside local churches, to equip believers in local churches and through local churches. But then COVID hit in 2020, and churches stopped meeting, and the ones even that were meeting stopped bringing in guest speakers. So whereas I had been doing evangelism and apologetics and Christian worldview trainings in different churches, especially in the city of Chicago, the opportunity for that wasn't quite there in 2020. But what was there was a mess of thousands of people who were on their computers and screens. Remember 2020? We're all in front of the screen. We all had Zoom fatigue. Well, what I wanted to do was I wanted to reach those people who are in front of their screens. And the podcast really grew in 2020. And so COVID was really a game changer for us. Crew was a perfect fit, but then things started to change. Let me tell you how they started to change. Over the last 4 years of being with Crew, and really 3 years since we raised our support and joined up with church movements has grown. Instead of having 30 some people on staff, now they have over 90 some people on staff. And during those 3 years, church movements has grown into its own identity in a lot of ways. But at the same time, so have we. So has the Think Institute. We've grown into our own identity. They've got their curricula. We've got our curricula. They've got their plans. We've got our plans. They've got their resources and tools. So do we. And so we started to feel like it was no longer the best fit. Like maybe we were outgrowing our position. Now, I know some of you want me to get into some of the ideological things going on at Crew. Believe me, I was having those conversations behind the scenes as well. But I'm not going to get into all that right now. I will tell you this, that we no longer felt like church movements was the perfect context that it had been. Although the core commitment of reaching people for the gospel of Jesus Christ and bringing them into the kingdom of Jesus Christ by serving local churches, although that remained the same, our methods, practices, and strategies had changed. And so we realized, really starting back in November, but especially this summer, we realized we were going to need to leave. So what did that mean? We were going to originally join up with another organization. That fell through. And so we determined, after a lot of prayer and a lot of discussion, that it was time to start our own nonprofit. And so that's why we did it. So why are we leaving Crew? Just no longer the best fit for us. So now the question is, what exactly is our strategy? What exactly are we going to do to accomplish this mission, this purpose? Well, our strategy is to equip believers by helping them do 3 things. And these 3 things, they all have a G and a C, because I'm still a preacher and I still think in terms of 3 points and alliteration. So the first GC is gain clarity. Gain clarity about the biblical worldview. The second piece of our strategy is grow confident in their ability to share and defend it. And finally, we help believers get connected to others to share ideas and interests and resources. So gain clarity, grow confident, and get connected. That is how we help believers to explain, share, and defend the Christian message. So who's on our team? Who's making it happen? Well, we have a board and a staff, and there is some overlap here. So I, Joel Sedekase, am the president of the board, and I'm also the executive director. So I'm on the board and I'm also on staff. I will be the executive director. We're still in process of hiring me and bringing me on, which sounds kind of funny. But when you start a nonprofit, you have to follow the rules, and that's part of the protocol. The secretary of the board is Kevin Blessum. Kevin, I'll tell you a little bit more about him in a minute, but just a dear brother, a guy who is very like-minded, very much on the same page, and just a big friend of the Institute. Our treasurer is Ann Dorner. Ann is someone who has been another dear friend. We know her from our Park Forest Glen days, and just an absolute, she and her husband are just wonderful people. They love the Lord, and I really could not ask for 2 better people to be on the board besides Kevin and Ann. They're just amazing people. We're so like-minded. We had our first board meeting the other day, and it went swimmingly. And so they're all in. They're invested, and it's been wonderful to have them on the team. And then as for our staff is rounded out by Elisa. Elisa her official title is going to be something like administrator, but really it's jack of all trades, getting stuff done. Elisa is excellent at administration. She is a disciple maker in our own home, a disciple maker of other ladies, and she's actually starting to speak publicly speak. She's doing a women's conference coming up this fall. So that is our team, me, Kevin, and Ann on the board, and then Elisa and I on staff. And these are the people that are making it happen. Now, in the future, we expect to grow the board. We expect to hire more staff. In the Lord willing, in the next 18 months, we're going to hire another staff member. But that's totally up to God to bring the right person along. And we'll have to define all that in the future. So what exactly do we do? And how can you benefit from what we're doing? Let's talk about that. What do we do? Let's talk about our Keystone Ministries here at the Think Institute. These are our most important activities. And they are really, it boils down to 5 things. The podcast is the one that we've been focusing the most on over the last several months. That's what you're listening to right now, Worldview Legacy. Then we have teaching. Now, this is where I'll go to a conference like the Cruciform Conference, which I've spoken at a couple of times, or we'll go into a local church like Zion Church out in Freeport, where we were just invited to speak and had just an amazing time out there. Or oftentimes I'll go on to other people's podcasts and give a lesson on how Jesus practiced apologetics, that sort of thing. The third element is conversations. Now, this takes a few different forms. One, we will have in-person discussions with men where we'll get together and enjoy cigars and pipes and that sort of thing. And that's totally optional, of course. But then we'll talk about the big worldview issues of the day, practical things, philosophical, theological concepts. And we'll host those discussions to seek truth in conversation together. Other ways we do conversations is I'll do AMAs online on the Discord chat app. And there are some other ways that we host live in-person conversations as well. And then the fourth Keystone Ministry is education. I'm working on a number of resources myself, like an apologetics curriculum, where I'm Lord willing, going to get that published in the next year. And that's going to be for 8th through 12th graders. We also have Catechids, which is the catechism that I wrote for preschoolers through 1st grade. And we're working on some other initiatives also. And then resources. Between the curriculum and Catechids and other PDFs, if you've been around the Think Squad group, maybe you've gotten a PDF from me outlining James White's book, Scripture Alone, or introducing my 3-step presuppositional method of apologetics, or maybe you've gotten my Think Method Bible card or document, PDF document. There are other things that we're working on, but we try to create resources to help the church, help believers explain, share, and defend the Christian message. So those are our Keystone Ministries. Now let's talk about how God uses these Keystone Ministries really quick before we move on. Let me tell you a pretty cool story about Kevin, our board member. How did Kevin does not live near Chicago. So how did he come to join our board? Well, he actually found us all the way from California by watching videos from Cy ten Bruggencate. And the reason why he was watching videos from Cy, who's a friend of mine, Christian apologist, is because Kevin was at the point, he was a relatively newlywed guy. And he said that he wanted to take his faith further. He wanted to grow in his relationship with the Lord. So he's studying apologetics. And Kevin has just an absolutely brilliant mind for apologetics and piecing ideas together. And he's watching Jeff Durbin videos, Cy ten Bruggencate films and videos, and he came across Answer Anyone, which is the short-run 4-episode podcast that Cy and I did together back in the spring of last year. And he watched that, and then he saw me, and he's like, who's this Jamoke Joel Sedekase? He starts watching our stuff. He starts watching what we then called the Think podcast, and he starts getting involved, and he starts to get involved in our ministry, and he and I get to know each other and develop a friendship there. And there's nothing, there's no big dramatic life altering cataclysm or something there. That's not the right word for it, but it was simply a guy who wanted to grow in his relationship with the Lord, grow in his faith, found our stuff online, and now is involved in the Think Institute. Actually, by being on the board, he's literally helping to govern the Think Institute. But I know that there are countless other stories out there of guys who are engaging with our stuff. And I hope and pray and believe that in some small way, it's having an impact on their lives, helping them become the worldview leaders that their families and churches need. So that was very encouraging. But God is actually using this stuff that we're doing, which is just blows my mind still. So very, very cool. Now, who are we trying to help? Let's talk about that. We are our ideal, before we talk about future outlook, let's talk about this. Our ideal target audience. This is not exclusive, but our ideal target audience is a Christian man who is not a pastor, but is already working hard to pass on his faith to the younger generation, and wants to become better able to articulate his faith and share it with confidence, and wants to be able to have solid answers, confident answers to the questions that the world is asking. That is our ideal. You say, well, what age group are you trying to reach? The answer to that, every age group. It doesn't matter, because what's more important is that it's a particular kind of person. Now, that's the center of our bullseye. If you go further out, if you're reaching husbands and aspiring dads, you're going to be reaching their wives, and you're going to be reaching their kids. So that's why we create resources, not just for men. We're not just like a men's ministry. There are plenty of those out there, and some of them are very, very good. We're not just like a family ministry. We're trying to reach the families, but we're doing so specifically through fathers in a particular way. But if you reach the fathers, you're going to reach their wives, you're going to reach their families. So we create resources for the whole family. So that's who we're trying to help. We're as God gives us grace, we're reaching whole families for the kingdom. So what does the future look like for us? 3, 5, 7 years from now? Well, if God grants it, here's what we're going to do in the future. Lord willing, we want to hire 1 or 2 more staff. We're going to need help with podcast production, social media promotion, and marketing, for lack of a better word. We are, let me get the right banner on there. There we go. We're looking to produce a textbook and curriculum for apologetics. We're looking to grow our overall audience to 19,685. Why that number? Right now, we're at about, let's say, 4,000 to 5,000 monthly engagement. 4,000 to 5,000 people are engaging with us on a monthly basis through the podcast and social media. Add about another 4,000 for the website. So about 8,000 people in our overall audience right now. And then what I did was I looked at some projected growth, some trends, and I got a little aspirational with it. I thought, where would we like to be? And so in 3 years, we'd like to be reaching 19,685 people on a regular monthly basis. That's distinct people. If you go further into the future, 5 and 7 years into the future, we want to start a library and homeschool resource center and Christian study center. Now, we're dreaming big with this. We're still in the ideation phase for that. Right now, we're just trying to get this ministry off the ground. But that would be something that we would want to do in the future. And then we want to eventually begin to offer accredited classes and even a gap year program for graduated high schoolers who want to take some time and lay down a foundation for themselves in the Christian worldview before going off to college, beginning a trade, what have you. So that's what the future looks like for us. Lord willing, of course, it's all in His hands. Now, what is our need for the ministry? Well, like most similar missionary organizations, and we are an educational and evangelistic organization, but we do not have a big pile of central funds somewhere for paying ministry expenses. I wish we did. That would be amazing, but we don't. We don't have an endowment. So we depend on the consistent financial support of like-minded individuals and churches that support us through funding, and that support funds our ministries and our staff members. We must find and maintain a team of partners who will support us at $150 monthly or some other amount. We have people who give at every level. Way below that, way above that. We're grateful for it all. And so that is what we need. That is our current need for our ministry. And your partnership can make a huge difference for reaching people with the gospel of Jesus Christ. So I'd like you to prayerfully consider partnering with the Think Institute, partnering with this new fledgling. I know we're small. I know that we are just starting out. In a lot of ways, this is a brand new ministry, even though we've been doing it really for 3 years. In a lot of ways, this is new because it's brand new as a nonprofit. So I am asking for us, for you to prayerfully consider. I'm not asking you to give. I'm not soliciting your donation through this. But what I am saying is I would like you to consider what it might look like to partner with us. And however that works out, whatever you feel called to do through prayer, give to your local church first, but through prayer, I would be incredibly honored to have that conversation with you. If you would like to get in touch with me, you can do that by sending me an email at joel@thethink.institute. That's my email. And then if you, I'll just post this giving link. This is going to be our giving link until November 22nd, 2022. And that is give.cru.org/1018841. We're still taking all contributions through Cru for the next 3 months. So again, that's give.cru.org/1018841. You guys didn't know you were going to listen to a pledge drive, did you? But you had to know that was coming. All right, now, what else do I want to tell you? There is another vital way that you can help, and that is by connecting us to like-minded individuals and churches. So especially if you're a pastor or if you are going to be speaking with your pastor in the near future, and you think you might want to bring the Think Institute or bring me out to do a training in apologetics or the Christian worldview or how to share your faith with confidence, I would love to do that. I would love to come out to your church or to do something virtually. So by all means, feel free to connect with me. And again, you can reach me at my email address, joel@thethink.institute, and send that out to me, and I'll be sure to respond ASAP. Okay, now, what questions do you have about everything that I've said so far? All right, let's see. Okay, we have a comment from a chef with 2 kittens. It says, suggestion. Instead of Think Squad, why not Thinkers? Squad is so Zoomer. Listen, I'm definitely not a Zoomer. I'm definitely not Gen Z, but a lot of our listeners are Gen Z, and a lot of their parents listen to this as well. So I'm okay. You want to call it Zoomer? That's fine. The reason why we call it Think Squad is because originally this podcast was called the Think Pod. So it was the Think Pod, the Think Squad. It worked. It was very, very clever, if I do say so myself at the time. But the group is already called Think Squad. I like it. I'm not going to change it. God bless you. Thank you for your contribution to that. But I'm not changing it. And I will say that Thinkers, that sounds, quite frankly, it sounds a little pretentious. Yes, we are the Thinkers. And don't think I didn't think about something like that. But I don't know. The Thinkers, I'll have to think more about that. But no, we're not going to change Think Squad. I love Think Squad. But start your own group called Thinkers. And if it's cool, I'll join. Invite me to join. That sounds like fun. But thank you for your suggestion. And Facebook user, I don't know who it is. You have to, if you want me to know who you are, you have to go on to StreamYard.com/Facebook and put in your permissions there, and then I'll be able to see who you are. But let's see. Facebook user says, is y'all's direct competitor Parker's Pensie's? No, definitely not. For those who don't know, I shouldn't even be telling you about this because you're going to go listen to him now. Parker's Pensie's is the podcast of my little brother, Parker Sedecase, the other mustachioed Sedecase brother. And actually, he's not the only other mustachioed Sedecase brother because our brother Gabe also is a mustachioed Sedecase brother. But Parker has his podcast called Parker's Pensies, and it is very good. It is also very much hitting a different niche than ours, where we are trying to reach Christian laymen with the skills that they need to become the worldview leaders their families and churches need, and with more of a family focus. Parker's Pensies is focused more on professors, PhDs, really intense philosophy and theology. It is very good. It's an excellent show, and I highly recommend it. But it's a different niche, and if I dare say, his show is reflective of the fact that he has spent the last several years in seminary studying for various philosophy and theology degrees, and I have a theology of religion degree as well. But it's been 5 years since I was in seminary. My show is more reflective of the fact that I spent years as a pastor. I think that my show is a little more pastoral. His show is a little bit more philosophical. I'm perfectly fine with that. There's going to be a lot of overlap, but no, it's an excellent show, and he is not my competition. So if there are no more questions, comments, anything like that, I just want to thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. This is an episode that's a little bit less polished than what you might be used to. I typically will do a lot more editing and a lot more, just try to keep things tighter. We're going over 30 minutes. So if you really had your hopes set on 30 minutes, I apologize. We don't normally do this. So this is a very odd episode for Worldview Legacy. But now you know. You know that the purpose of the Think Institute is to equip believers to explain, share, and defend the Christian message. You know that we are starting a nonprofit because this work is needed. And by God's grace, it's helpful and the timing is right. And it's the culmination of a dream that I've had for years. You know that we're leaving Crew. Actually, we've already left Crew because we simply outgrew our position. And the Think Institute grew into its own identity. At the same time, the Crew Church Movements was growing into its identity. And it's now time to let the Think Institute stand on its own 2 feet. We talked about how our strategy is to help believers to gain clarity, grow confident, and get connected, and how our team consists of a governing board, myself, Kevin, and Ann, and then the staff consisting of myself and Elisa. And we talked about what we're going to be doing. We're going to be podcasting, teaching, hosting conversations, educating, creating resources, all to the glory of God to edify his people. And we're seeking to help Christian laymen and their families who are trying to pass on the Christian faith to the younger generation, who want to become better able to give good answers to the questions the world is asking. And how can you help? You can help all of this by joining our ministry partnership team. I'm not asking you, but I'm proposing that it might be something that you want to consider prayerfully. Or you can connect us to someone who can bring us into your church or who can partner with us. Now, let me tell you about our free community. Do you want to build a worldview legacy for your family? Then join the Think Squad group now. Now is the right time to become the worldview leader that your family and your church need. Get connected to others who are on the same journey as you and get access to all the resources that we are sharing and all the stuff to help you pass on your faith. Join the Think Squad group. All you have to do is open up Facebook, search for Think Squad. That's ThinkSquad. Answer the short membership questions, and that is all that it takes. Thank you for listening to Worldview Legacy. This episode was produced by yours truly, Joel Sedekase, and is a production of the Think Institute. We equip believers to explain, share, and defend the Christian message, and we are based by God's grace. Sedekase out.